Hi everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this workshop I'm going to show you how to make a journal where you can add and remove pages at your leisure. I have one here. We're not going to be making a book cover like this because I just want to basically show you how to make the structure, because you can use a structure without a cover. But basically I have a journal here that I'm using for a series that I'm doing on painting facial features, and with this here is that you can just pull out a strip and take the pages out and put something else in. Okay, and with this book, I mean, you can add as many pages as you want, and then this particular one here, I actually glued the last page to the binder, to the book cover, and it acts like an actual pad. Okay, so you can actually hold it in your hand and can fold this over if you want and paint. So we're going to be making a study journal, and you should always have study journals for you to do studies in, so you don't use up canvas and masonite, because that stuff's, you know, costly and it takes up a lot of room. Supplies are minimal. You're going to need, well, it's optional on scissors. You need scissors. I'm trying to think, you can probably just tear the paper, which is what I'm going to do. Scissors, a pencil, an X-Acto knife with a really sharp blade. If you're a young person watching this, make sure that your parents or supervisor gives you a hand with this. Don't want you to cut yourself. Now I have a bone folder, which is what I use for burnishing the edges of paper to really make a nice crease. You don't have to use a bone folder. You can use the handle of a paintbrush. You can use a ruler. You can even use scissors. When it comes to burnishing, I'll show you why I don't use scissors. What else? Oh, you'll need some scrap pieces of paper. When I get to that, I'll give you the measurements, but you need some scrap pieces of paper, preferably the same material as your journal paper. Bamboo skewers, and I'll talk about the measurements on those, and what your journal is going to be made out of. I have here 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, and I like using this type of paper because if I'm doing a watercolor study, I can just do it in the same book. If I'm doing an acrylic study, depending on the technique, I can just prime it with gesso and paint with acrylic, or just take acrylic and paint right in. I don't have to do anything special with this journal between watercolors to acrylics. I can do watercolor pencils, colored pencils, you know, whatever. The only thing you can't do in this is paint with oils unless you've got about 3 good layers of gesso on the pages. But in saying that, I do have journals specifically for oil paintings. It's because the oils take a bit longer to dry. With the way that I do it with the medium, it dries the next day. But there's a new product on the market, which is watercolor paper for oils, so you can use that. If you want to cover all the bases, I mean, you can use something like Terraskin, which is paper made from stone, which will take watercolor, acrylics, and oils. But the watercolor technique, it's not same because Terraskin is water resistant. I am using a Terraskin strip for the actual binding because Terraskin, this stuff here is heavy, really heavy. It doesn't tear. Okay, but you can use the scrap piece of paper. All right, so to get started, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tear our sheet. Now I've prepared, to save time, I've prepared a few, and ideally the actual journal is going to be like this. Okay, it's going to fold out this way, and it's going to allow you to basically paint this way or paint this way, depending, whatever you want to do. Okay? Oh, and you'll need a self-sealing mat. If you don't have a self-sealing mat, just a bunch of newsprint or an old telephone book, just when you cut with your blade, that you don't damage your table. You can measure with a ruler and all that stuff. I like the easy way out. I hate measuring because I'm terrible at math. So I only measure if I absolutely have to, when it's critical. Now, if I'm doing a professional journal for somebody, then I will measure for sure. And I always have enough paper just in case it doesn't work out. So I've got my piece here, and you can tell when paper it's on the grain when it's really easy to fold. With this particular journal, we're going to be cutting and folding against the grain, and I'm going to show you what to do to make the folding easier. Folding this way is easy because the grain goes this way, okay? So it's really easy to fold, okay? Fold it in half. You can't get any simpler than that. Now this watercolor paper is the Canson XL paper. It's not a professional quality paper. It's very, very good paper. It comes in a big pad, 9 by 12, and I picked it up for about 20 bucks. I don't know if that's expensive or not, but it works for me for studies, okay? Fold it in half, and then this is where I'm going to take my bone folder. It's going to go right in the middle, and I'm just going to crease. Make a nice crease, nice and sharp. If you don't have a bone folder, these cost about 10 bucks. And you can, if you don't, your art store doesn't carry it, you can ask them where you can get one. I got this at the downtown art store, but you can, you know, do that, or scissors. Now this is why I didn't stop using scissors. You can actually use the handle of your scissors and see how it's pointing out this way, and just, you can do that, okay? The last time I used scissors, I actually held the scissors here and I cut myself. I wasn't holding it like this, I was holding like this, and I actually cut myself. So that's why I don't use scissors anymore. And I was using the scissors because these were never in stock. So I have my crease there, okay? Then I'm going to basically fold against that crease. And what I'm doing is I'm making a really, really fluid fold. Now you don't have to fold it. You can use scissors if you want, just to measure in half and cut. I want a torn edge on my journal, so now I'm just going to carefully tear the paper. And the edge is going to be torn on the bottom. If you want edges torn on the outside, you can get a tearing ruler, and you can do that. So with the tear on the bottom, now I have to fold it again. Now this is where I'm folding against the grain, and the folding is much harder. So one thing that I like to do is, this is where you get your measure. I'm going to measure one, then I'm going to show you a different way with the other one. I just want to fold it in half. And what I'm going to do, where's my zero marker? I need to measure at 4.5. So I'm just going to roughly, I'm not going to worry too much. Okay. And I've got my line. Now, what you can do is you can take a bone folder and you can score, press really hard, not hard enough that you cut through the paper, and where it's made that indent, and it just makes, you're going to fold the opposite way, and it just makes it easier to make that fold. Okay, and then you burnish. Okay, so you got that. The other thing you can do is measure again, or just take one that you've, you know, let's say you've folded this one in half, just line it up on the edge. Like, you would really have to make sure it's lined up. Joe's actually made me a jig for this. Okay, got my line. You know, if I'm in a hurry, I'll just do them all. Let me just double check. I'm off by a little bit. So then you can take your ruler, and then you can use an X-Acto knife and lightly score. Don't go all the way through though. I like the bone folder method better though. And this will help you with your fold. And then you're going to have to just kind of line things up. Whoopsie. Okay. And then burnish it. With the bone folder, it's much, much, much easier because you can actually do the scoring. Okay, so that's ready to go. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to make our accordion, and which is called a concertina, and the accordion is actually going to hold all these pages together. So this is where you get strips of paper. Now, there's so many different ways to make these books, and I'm just going to show you the way that I like. For a little book like this, just 2 strips. Okay, just 2 strips, and what you're going to do, you're going to cut the strip like a really long strip, and and like longer the better, because you can always trim it off. And what I like to do is I start 1 inch from the edge, put my paper, make a mark with my pencil, okay, on both sides. So I'm going to do that with this one. Actually, you only have to measure 1. Then when you go to when you get your next sheet, you actually can just measure from the previous one. Okay. Take the other one. Whoops. Make sure all your torn edges are on the same side. When I actually pre-did some of my pieces, I had them all together, and I wrapped the paper right around like that. Okay, made sure everything was lined up, and I just marked my edges like that. Okay. Because we're actually going to be putting paper inside of these, your paper is going to tear a little bit, the watercolor paper, because it is paper. So that's why I'm not too worried about it. And now, this is where we need our knife. I'm going to take the craft mat, and between your marks, you're going to cut inside those lines. So you can see here that between the marks, you're going to cut inside, because your paper is actually going to go through. Okay, so what I like to do is kind of lift it up a little bit, get the cut started, and do it like that. Everybody does it differently. This is just my way of doing it. And if you're a young person doing this, make sure you get some help, because this is quite sharp. Okay, that's that. So we've made our cuts. So now I've saved some time. I've prepared these already. Okay, so they all have cuts. Okay, the exact size of the paper. Now for our accordion, what you're going to do, because we're working with our bamboo skewers, let's do this part first. You're going to take your bamboo skewers and you measure. Okay, again, I'm not going to use a ruler, but I want it slightly in from the actual edge of the book. So measure, make a mark. Okay, and what you want is a bamboo skewer that rolls really, really well. I'm going to take my knife, put it on that mark, take my hand, very carefully, whoopsie, just roll back and forth. And use firm pressure on this, but be very careful that your hand doesn't slip. Okay, you just do this a few times, and actually then take your fingernails and you can actually clean break with that skewer. Okay, and I've prepared a whole bunch in advance. And if you have 10 pages, don't cut just 10, cut a lot more, because sometimes if you have trouble with them, some of them may have some sharp edges. You can get some light sandpaper and lightly sand those edges. The ones with the points, I don't like using the ones with the points because they're dangerous, but I will use these for another journal where this is really far from the edge, so I don't hurt myself. Ideally, what's going to happen to measure for our accordion, you're going to take your bamboo stick, put it through that big strip of paper, and what you want is to be able to fold the paper over, okay, and then kind of use your fingernail to make a mark. And then take that out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that, okay, where you made that crease is going to be your starting point. Okay, so I'm just going to put my mark there. And you're going to have a much longer piece. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold and make little folds. When we were in school, remember we used to make little snakes out of these? Okay, and you're going to fold, fold, fold. And with each piece that sticks up, when it goes through your book, your bamboo skewer is going to fit inside. When you do that for your whole piece, you're going to have a really, really long strip like this. Okay? And your bamboo skewer is going to go underneath, which is going to keep everything together. So I have one here. Okay, so when I started it, measured it like this. Okay, wrapped it right around, and then I just made a mark where my folds have to go. Okay, and when I actually, now this is out of Terra Skin, because Terra Skin is tear resistant. As I fold back and forth, what I'm going to do, because this is so thick, I'm going to use my bone folder to burnish each one. Like so. And then you can individually burnish them if you want. Okay, that's up to you. It's not necessary. Okay, where the piece is sticking up, that's what your covers are going to be attached to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need one more. I'm short. I have 10 folios. The folios are the actual pages, the folded pages. I don't like using a lot of technical terms when I'm doing the bookbinding, but sometimes you need to know. This is uneven. That's fine. We're going to end up cutting this off anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so there we go. There we have our accordions. Okay, and this is the really, really fun part. You're going to take each page. Ideally, you're going to have this piece here. Whether or not you use this as your cover, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do at the end. You're going to take your first mountain, this little mountain here, okay? You're going to put that inside. So it's going to look like that, okay? When you put your pieces inside, you're going to get your fold, put it inside, and where the pieces fold out, okay, you're going to put your next folded page on this mountain, and then this mountain, and then this mountain. So if you were to lay it flat, you're going to have a piece of folded paper on each mountain. Now you can choose, I'm using really technical terms, aren't I? Now you can choose to use, do just the top part, then do the bottom part. That's up to you. I like to work back to front. But to make sure that these don't come out, I'm going to put my skewer inside. Now this is where the pointed skewers come in handy, because you can use them to separate your, oh, see this one, see the wood chipped? That's what I wanted to avoid. I think I got a splinter. Bamboo skewers, they're cheap. They're cheap for a reason, because you use them for barbecuing. And okay, so there's one. That's going to hold that first page together. I'm just going to pull it out a little bit, make it nice and tight. Now I'm going to do the next one. Take the next page, and you want to make sure that when you've got this piece here, okay, make sure that everything stays tight when you're folding it, okay? You're going to work in a way that it'll allow you to build the book. Now you can leave, if you run out of pieces, you can always tape some together. I'm not sure if that makes any sense. So let's say this was the very, very last piece. I could always tape another piece together with another accordion, which will let me build on the book. Does that make any sense? And I'm going to do the next fold. This is where it gets a little cumbersome here. Okay, we've got that one in there. And I'm going to start putting my bamboo sticks in right away, just to keep it nice and snug. Okay, it just helps. These, because these are so tight, they're so small, it is a little bit challenging to get them in. I'm not going to lie to you. There we go. This book won't go flat, which is fine, because when you're doing painting studies, sometimes it's nice having the books nice and thick. Okay, so there we go. So there's our set, and we just basically keep building from that. Okay, as you're building them, make sure when you're putting each piece together, put your bamboo stick in just to hold it snug, and then put the other one. Try not to fuss too much with it, and then because you might tear your paper, and that's one thing you don't want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to continue building my pieces, and you can choose to watch or just skip ahead to the next section. Now, if your cuts are a little tight, you can take an X-Acto knife to spread them out a little bit. You'll only need to use a pointed skewer for the just to initially open it up. Okay. You can do the same thing like this, except use stiff cardboard instead of bamboo sticks. Oops. And if your journals are a little bit bigger than this, they're not going to be as stiff. Once you get a routine, stick with that, like holding it a certain way, or I found doing it this way. I was fussing too much trying to make sure that everything was on camera, and I thought, okay, well let's simplify it a little bit more. And I found doing it this way, at least you can see everything I'm doing. Oops. Okay. And then as the folds come, as everything gets added in, I just recrease. Okay. In, hold my hand down right on top of it. Come on, get in there. This is where having the point, using the pointed end as your actual stick would be handy. But once your journal is made, your paper will form around it. Okay. The first couple of pages of the folios, or if you're doing a different bookbinding technique, the first few folios or signatures, which is a group of folios nested together, they're always the most the ones that are the most fuddy-duddy. They cause the most grief. You should see when I try to do a Coptic stitch, the first set, because you do one type of stitch for the cover, then another stitch for the rest of the book. Just forming the strapping around the stick. There we go. Fold it over. When you score Terraskin, it doesn't quite hold as well because Terraskin is not made from trees, and water and bleach isn't used. It's actually made from stone, so it doesn't quite hold the best. So when I do these with the accordions being made out of the same paper, it's a little bit easier. Okay, but Oh, this one here I made the cut a little too narrow. So I'm just going to get my blade and I'm just going to widen it a little bit. Yeah, just a smidgen. Oh, make sure you always cap your knife. I like using the Terra skin though, because it's tear resistant. Especially if you're going to be working with a journal that's going to have a lot of wear and tear. Oh. I can't talk and do anything at the same time. Okay, see? Now, if you didn't have any more pages, I mean, you can just kind of lightly tape this with low-tack masking tape, or just you know, Scotch tape that's not too adhesive, and you can work. Then you can add more pages. But even if you ran out of paper, you can just tape more paper to this and just make your book as long as you want, or as big as you want. Ooh, this bamboo skewer's got a bit of a bow in it. I'm going to keep it because it's interesting. But it doesn't want to go into the accordion. There we go. It's got a nice little curve in it. Okay, I've got 2 more to go. You can also make these as big as you want. Now, if you're going to be making them, let's say about this big, put 3 straps. For this book here, the straps are just over 1 inch wide. Are they 1 inch wide? They're about 1.25 inches. They're a little bit big, but it doesn't matter. So that's going to have a splinter. You can also paint your bamboo skewers if you want. And this is my last piece. Forming the accordion around that. I should be using actual bookbinding terms. I like to keep things simple. Accordion, thingamabob, thingamajiggy. Okay. Now, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to make covers for these, because this can act as your cover. If you're planning, if there's you might want to be removing this piece, then just take another sheet. We'll just use this. You can take another sheet and glue that to that. Okay, don't glue this to your cover, because if you glue this to this, then you won't be able to take this out. But you can just use another piece. And that's what I'm going to do with this. Is I have this is part of another journal that I had, and it was damaged. I spilt paint all over it, had an accident. So I'm not going to, I could do it this way, okay, but then I'd have to paint this. Or I know I'm not going to be taking the first piece out. I never do. Okay, I always leave the first one intact. And I usually don't paint on the first one, because I'll make notes as to what the journal's for. So I know for a fact I'm not touching the first one. So what I could do is I could glue this to the front, and then I'm going to paint the back, maybe black. Then I'll glue this to here. And then if I wanted to kind of make it a little industrial, then I can glue some brad nails on the top. And let me just show you what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so they are actually fold arounds, but you can snip them off and just glue this for a decorative feel. Okay, or I can just do this and paint this black and leave that the way it is, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to put 2 of those brads on here. And now this will not stay flat. Like this one here will actually stay flat. Okay, what's nice about these is that you can display them round. Okay, so where they're separated together, okay, you could put like a paper clip or something just to hold it as a display. Okay, and it looks kind of cool. Okay, if you're not sure what you want to do, just use low tack masking tape. Make sure you get the ones that, and it tells you how long you can use it for before it starts to set. Note that the green tape, the painter's tape, is used on walls. This is paper, so you're probably going to have something pulling up. So, I mean, you don't have to tape it down right now because your book is fine. Okay, your book is fine, so you don't have to tape anything, but it'll look a little bit cleaner if you do. I mean, you can also tape them back like this. Just don't trim them because you may run the risk of it coming through. Okay, so I'm going to glue them down, paint it black, put this on top. Not going to paint in my first sheet. I'm going to use that for notes, and then like that. And then for the back, I can do the same thing. I can just get cardstock or whatever and just put something on the back. And then now I have a journal that I can use for painting studies where I can remove the sheets if I want. Make as many of these as you can for painting studies, because the more you paint, or the more you practice, not just paint, draw, whatever, the more you practice, the better you get, the happier you feel. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed this little workshop, and visit my blog at creativechaos.artplace.ca. The link will be at the end of the video, and check out a whole bunch of other tutorials that I have on painting, art journaling, drawing, and bookbinding. See you later!